Hi everyone, Archmagos Fariston here. I know I haven't done a 40k lore video in quite a while. Lately I've been pumping out quite a lot of gaming videos, combined with work, study and family commitments. But finally I've been able to sit down and collect my thoughts about a 40k topic which I've wanted to cover for a long time. I've often wondered what Chaos Space Marines do all day in the Eye of Terror. What is life like in the Eye? And how do warbands stay in operation without the infrastructure of the Imperium to support them? This brings me to my first question. What is life really like in the Eye of Terror? So what is the Eye of Terror? The Eye of Terror, called the Ocularis Terribus in High Gothic, is a massive warp rift, nearly 20,000 light years across. A place where the Immaterium coexists with real space. It is the largest warp rift in the Milky Way galaxy and is located at the rimward edge of the galaxy, to the galactic northwest of Terra, in the segmentum obscurus. It is home to the largest concentration of the forces of chaos in real space, including the traitor legions that fled from Terra at the end of the Horus Heresy. Even though the Eye of Terror stretches across 20,000 light-years of the galaxy, the region of space-time contained within the Eye constitutes its own reality, existing within both the material universe and the warp. Although planets and star systems exist within the Eye, the laws of physics no longer fully apply. Time is a meaningless concept, and matter, thought, and energy are indistinct and blurred with one another. For one Chaos Marine, the days of the Horus Heresy were only weeks ago. For another, the Horus Heresy was 10,000 years ago. The worlds within the Eye are known as demon worlds, and each planet has its own, often bizarre, sub-reality, whose physical laws are shaped by whichever aspect of the dominant Chaos God is venerated by its inhabitants. At the very center of the Eye lies the Byssos, a hole in the fabric of reality through which raw chaos energy pours out into the material universe. I'd like to read a passage from the book Black Legion by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, otherwise known as ADB, which illustrates how time passes for the traitor legions living in the Eye. It was Amurael who gave voice to the question pressing against the confines of my skull. Kaon, he said, turning a broken, unfamiliar bolter in his hands. How long have we been gone from the Imperium? I have fought beside warriors of the legions for whom the Imperium itself is a distant memory, even to eidetic recollections. It doesn't matter to them why the Long War began, nor even how it will end. They have been fighting it for an eternity. It is all they know. On the opposite side of the same coin, I have known warriors for whom terror is a scarce memory at all. The same adrenal rage that flowed in their veins during the siege still beats through their bodies now. For some of them, chronologically speaking, it has been mere months or a handful of years since their exile began. As for myself, I have undertaken missions on my legion's behalf that took days to succeed, only to return to Abaddon and the Vengeful Spirit to learn that years had passed aboard our flagship. The reverse is also true. More than once I have waged war in the Black Legion's name for years, even decades, only to find that practically no time has passed at all. But even this is seeking to define the undefinable. We are speaking of a concept that cannot be tamed with words. The truth is both simple and devastatingly complex. The truth is that most of us no longer care about time. It means nothing to us anymore. Marking the passage of days and months and years is almost impossible. We fight when we must fight. We kill when we must kill. We eat and drink to sustain ourselves. We sleep when our bodies force somnolence upon us. There is no routine, no harmonious schedule of order. We breathe and bleed, and breathe and bleed. There is only existence, moment by moment. You are alive or you are dead. So as you can see, time means nothing in the eye, and this partly explains why Chaos Astartes can spend 10,000 years doing more or less the same thing. For them it hasn't been 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy. For many of them it has been only months or a few years. This brings me to my second question. How do Chaos Warbands navigate throughout the eye? As mentioned, within the eye, the warp and real space are not two separate things. They are intermixed, and the whole region is a maelstrom of psychic energy impossible to navigate through by normal methods. Imperial starships avoid the area, and ships travelling too close to the Eye of Terror when going through the warp can be thrown far off course. They can also be caught in temporal whirlpools, which carry them backwards or forwards in time, or even trap them in limbo. In Black Legion, Kaon tells us the following. We were more fortunate than many of the other warbands. Abaddon has always seen value in sorcerers and recruited them to our cause by any means necessary. In a realm where navigators are hopelessly lost to madness, and so many warships sail only by hurling themselves into the tormented oceans and trusting the whims of the Pantheon to bring them into new hunting grounds, our vessels were guided by those gifted in the art. Though far from a fail-safe method, use of sorceress void guides was the best and indeed the only way to keep our fleets in cohesion. I think this passage is quite telling and indicates that most warbands will use sorcerers to navigate through eye space, for there simply is no other reliable method available to them. The next question I'd like to address is, what are some of the noteworthy planets in eye space? The first one I'd like to talk about is Medrengard. Medrengard is a demon world within the eye that serves as the current homeworld of the Iron Warriors Traded Legion. Located at the very entrance of the Eye of Terror, Medrengard is a world with a black sun and a white sky, its surface turned into a vast fortress, all trace of its original form lost under mountains of impossibly high towers, its core penetrated by plunging dungeons. Medrengard has been described as a bleak prison world where slaves toil for the glory of Perturabo. Great chaos warships are tethered to the tallest fortress towers, wherein reside the Iron Warriors themselves. The next planet I'd like to talk about is Sortiarius, the planet of the sorcerers. Sortiarius is a demon world of siege and the home of the Thousand Suns Trader Legion. Sortiarius is ruled by the demon primarch Magnus the Red. Up until recently, the planet was located deep in the Eye of Terror. However, in 999 M41, the planet of the sorcerers was returned to real space, teleported from the Eye of Terror to a position directly above the remains of the Thousand Suns' lost original homeworld of Prospero. Magnus the Red used the power produced by the deaths of so many during the siege of Fenris to carry out the ritual that allowed him to return the Thousand Suns to their ancient home. Sicarus. Sicarus is a demon world of chaos undivided, and the homeworld of the Wordbearers Trader Legion. Sicarus is located deep within the Eye of Terror, and it is from this planet that the veteran Dark Apostles of the 17th Legion, who make up the ruling Dark Council, watch over the Wordbearers Legion in their Primarch Lorgar's continued absence. The Wordbearers seek to orchestrate the corruption of the Imperium from within at the hands of the various chaos cults and witches' covens they sponsor across the galaxy. Beneath a sky of fire and blood, Sicarus is a world completely covered by vast, sprawling cathedrals, temples and monuments dedicated to the worship of the ruinous powers of chaos. Zana 2. Zana 2 is a hellforge which lies deep within the Eye of Terror and is a great stronghold of the Dark Mechanicus. Zana 2 is believed to be a world given over to demon machines and infernal industries, where countless millions are enslaved to work in a world-spanning network of forges, churning out an endless supply of weapons and armaments for the Trader Legion's long war. The masters of Zana 2 are ruled by half-demon machines themselves, and have long since left the shreds of their humanity behind, and are beholden to none, be they mortal or chaos god. They sell or barter their unholy inventions and arms to the highest bidder, be they warlord, chaos marine, sorcerer, or demon prince, all without favour. And their coin of exchange is always the same: new raw material, the flesh and souls of slaves to feed Zana 2's endless hunger. And lastly is Sublime. Sublime is a rare sight within the Eye of Terror, a warp star in the making, a dying planet frozen in its last moments, while hordes of demons feed on the essence of everyone who ever lived on this fractured world. Sublime is one of the few neutral grounds within the Eye, a non-aligned world where factions sometimes come to parley and trade, but mostly to indulge their vices. Trade is Sublime's lifeblood, and its archaeotech markets, collectively known as Black Golan, deal with everything from dreams and new sensations to powerful weaponry and raw materials. To protect these riches, Sublime is surrounded by hundreds of heavily armed orbital battle stations in order to ensure that no outside faction can interfere with the continual wars Sublime's independent city-states wage upon each other. Where other worlds may belong to the Trader Legions, demons, or the Dark Mechanicum, Sublime is a haven for renegades and pirates, be they Alderi corsairs, human renegades, or Xenos. The next question I'd like to look at is, how do Chaos Space Marines replenish their ranks and get new recruits? Chaos Space Marines can and do recruit new Marines. We know that Chaos Marines recruit by recruiting from cultists, from the most promising slaves in their ships, slaves found on their planets, in ice space, from raids, and from corrupting loyalist Space Marines to side with Chaos. In the book Black Legion by ADB, Iskander Kayon says the following: "In truth, we only descended into those levels for two reasons: to stir the rabble into a frenzy before deploying them as bolter fodder, or, far more rarely, harvesting their ranks for male children who would make viable candidates for ascension into our ranks. But we lacked the functioning resources to devote any real efforts to that process. There was no true recruitment, only stasis and slow depletion. It seems that Chaos Marines don't have a problem with finding recruits. They have more of a problem with obtaining sufficient gene seed and avoiding catastrophic mutation in their troops. One example of this is Honsal, an Iron Warriors Marine whose gene seed comes partly from the Iron Warriors, but also partly from loyalist Imperial Fist gene stocks. Another example of Chaos Marines having trouble finding quality gene seed is the Chaos Space Marines chapter The Thousand Suns. The gene seed is notoriously prone to mutation. This was the case even before the Horus Heresy, and this further complicates the process of gene seed implantation for this particular legion. I think all this indicates that Chaos can and does recruit new Astartes, but the main issue is finding enough gene seed and quality gene seed in order to be able to do this in the first place. The final question I'd like to look at is, How do the forces of chaos rearm and re-equip their soldiers? Is chaos as strong as the Imperium of man? Well, depending on the size and power of the warband, and depending on how good their relations are with the Dark Mechanicum, a warband may be fortunate enough to get equipment and ammunition from a heretic forge world. There are a number of forges on demon worlds, also known as hell forges. Freed from the restrictions placed upon them by the Adeptus Mechanicus, the heretics are free to pursue their dark experiments, produce demon machines, and of course produce weapons and equipment in great supply. The forge masters of these Dark Mechanicum forges are often half demonic machines themselves, an answer to no one, neither mortals nor chaos gods. They sell and barter their unholy inventions and arms to the highest bidder, and their coin of exchange is always the same: raw materials, slaves, and souls for their dark forges. It's worth pointing out that some heretic developments are even technologically superior to those of the Imperium, such as AI, scrap code, Vor weapons, which are living weapons, or advanced voidcraft. In fact, the Hellblade and Helltalon attack craft produced by the Hellforge Zana II are very potent and technically advanced, and can even outperform Imperial craft in terms of speed and maneuverability. However, most warbands are not fortunate enough to have access to a forge world, and even if they do have links to a Hellforge, they may not have the resources to trade for their services anyway. In the book Black Legion by ADB, Iskander Kaon says the following: I have spoken of our fleet's might, but not its poverty. The many demon forges that would later answer Abaddon's calls were still in their infancy within the Empire of the Eye. Our heresy-era technology was eternally degrading even back then, and we had little to use in place of our losses. Resources like ore-rich moons, shipboard foundries, and mechanicum manufactoria were as precious to us as fresh water, not only agonizingly rare, but also subject to their own sufferings. Legion warbands endlessly plundered such sites in the rabid hunt for shreds and scraps of advantage. You have heard evidence of this carrion feeding already. I have told you of Malium, of the raids and punishments it endured, and of our undignified picking through its carcass. We were all vultures and carrion crows in those days. I believe we still are. And if we were low on ammunition, if our armor plating was cracked, repaired and cracked again, the truth is that our fleets were in even worse shape. We had been beaten in the heresy, we had been beaten into exile in the Scouring, and while the Imperium licked its wounds in the aftermath of our disappearance, we had spent that era waging war against one another. For every vessel enhanced by mutation, another was cursed by it. For every cruiser sailing with admirable repairs or an undamaged hull, another one was a shell of its former glory. Within ice space, our ships were subject to the erosion of the warp's touch, accelerating natural degradation, and reliable opportunities to dry dock and repair a capital ship were staggeringly scarce. In the Eye, especially in that era, a functioning, stable shipyard was practically the stuff of dreams. They were always the highest priority for destruction if another warband wished to grind a rival into the dust. Imperial captains across the millennia have often observed that the trader legions and our thrall fleets are comprised of warships plundered from sectors surrounding the Eye. The Gothic sector alone has supplied us with any number of ships across the many centuries. This is a sad necessity, as our Crusade and Heresy-era vessels break down beyond sustainability, are lost to the warp's clutches, or are simply destroyed in the ebb and flow of the long war. It is for these same reasons that you see our individual warriors equipped with ancient and unreliable patterns of weaponry, or reduced to using inefficient, outdated war gear. For all the strength that mutation and hatred bestow, erosion, decay, and the eternal civil war between the 9 legions takes more than its share. We are mighty, but it is a tenuous might. I think these words from Kaon give us some rare insights into the harsh reality facing most small to medium-sized warbands in the eye. The trader legions are by and large not well supplied, and their equipment is usually falling apart, cobbled together and substandard. However, in the Ahriman Omnibus by John French, it is stated, Techrites moved around the other craft, caressing their hulls, connecting or disconnecting pipes and cables, while muttering in a low hooting tongue. Bird masks of verdigris-stained bronze covered their faces, and ochre robes swirled around them as they moved. All of them were of the Ciribor, a clan of long-corrupted Techrites. Their masters had given their bond to the great sorcerer Ammon, and so they served him, maintaining his weapons of war. Such service was a blessing of the many-eyed god, and the Ciribor viewed the sorcerers they served with fear and awe. When they saw the craft enter, they noted its mark of status, identified it as serving the personal acolytes of Ammon, and moved to receive it. Aboard the Psychorax, the Ciribor take care of the equipment, weapons and maintenance of the ships in Ammon's fleet, which Ahriman later goes on to take over once he dispatches Ammon. Ahriman does not complain about the equipment or maintenance of the ships, so presumably the Techrites do their job well enough to keep Ahriman's forces in good working order. I think these diverse viewpoints show us that the Chaos forces in the Eye of Terror are not uniform. Some of them have access to advanced Dark Mechanicum weaponry and equipment. Some warbands have Techrites who are in indentured service to them, whilst others live day by day, raiding their neighbours for even the most basic supplies and equipment. When taken as a whole, the industrial might of the Imperium, with its countless forge worlds and hive cities, is far superior to the forces of Chaos. However, this does not rule out individual Dark Mechanicum forge worlds or large, well-organised warbands having access to technologies and weapons that are more advanced than those found in the hands of the average Imperial opponents. In summary, I would say that the average Chaos Space Marine spends his time training, taking care of his weapons and armour, which in most cases tends to be of degraded quality, fighting and raiding other warbands, and plotting the next power play within their own warband. Emperor's Children Marines probably live a life of debauchery. The followers of Khorne fight and kill as much as possible. And the Thousand Sons spend their time delving into the deep mysteries of warp magic. But we have to remember that they're also confronted with the realities of daily life. A bloodthirsty Chaos Marine can't very well kill 10 slaves a day, otherwise pretty soon he's going to run out of slaves, a commodity that's already in short supply. In truth, Astartes who have turned to Chaos lead lives of despair, unhappiness, and lack of purpose. It's no wonder that many trader marines flock to Abaddon's banner. He offers them true brotherhood and renewed purpose. Alright everyone, leave your comments below, and thanks for watching.